Hi, this is a supplementary lecture on making better decisions using Decision Guru, a tool that's been proven to help quite a bit in many, many different applications, from product development to operational effectiveness to vendor decisions, lots of different decisions that this works for. Now, we covered decision making in one of the lectures within week 7. And so we're not going to rehash a lot of that, but here's what I'd like I'd like to cover today. Just to give the background, there's been a lot of work in recent years from lots of different people, starting with Kahneman and Tversky, but certainly lots of other people have weighed in on that in the business schools and outside of the business schools on behavioral economics. And, for example, one of the seminal works, or often quoted works, is a book called Winning Decisions by Russo and Shoemaker, in which they convincingly discuss and demonstrate that we're all suboptimal decision makers, and that's the bad news. The good news is that because we do things irrationally, we can improve the decisions that we make. And so they give us a few sort of rules of thumb to be able to do that. One is to have a process, or they say respect the process. Respect the process of decision making. Altogether too often, when making any sort of decision, big or small, we don't have and respect the process. Second thing is practice. Don't just wing it. Practice the process. Practice and hone your skills. The third thing is conduct a personal assessment. So don't just guess whether you're a good decision maker or not, or whether you're following the process or not. Assess your decisions and go over them. The third is to have the process should be flexible so that you can adapt your process. And fourth, spread the word. That is, institutionalize, socialize. Maybe that's a bad word today, but spread the word, not spread the work, spread the word about the decisions that you've made, sharing decisions, having an open community that takes on decision making rationally and openly is less prone to being swayed by single individuals, to hitting one of the many, many biases that we talked about last time, including hindsight bias, blindside bias, authoritarian bias, all those magic number bias, all of those types of biases. Now, we're going to discover this. We're going to discover that Decision Guru deals with all of these and helps you do this in a very organic way. And I want to explore that in an example that we'll use from choosing a college, either for yourself or for your son or daughter or nephew or whatever, okay? But I think we could probably all relate to, or many of us can relate to, choosing a college. Big decision, making the wrong decision, or a bad decision could easily affect us in a major way, both money-wise and long-term, career-wise and happiness-wise. So lots of different ways that we can do it, and a lot of people kind of fall into college for one reason or another. We'll explore, we'll do an example in DG on college choice. So let's go to it. So Decision Guru is really just an application that exists on the internet. All of you have access to it. And let's just get to it. It's on the Straight Line website. Whoops. So if I type in straightlineps.com, we get directly to the Straight Line website. And before I go in there, I want to show you that even directly from the Straight Line website, you can go and you can view lots of different case studies. We have over 24 case studies that are in here. And the case studies are all in operational effectiveness, strategy and growth, finance, product design and development. And if you click on them, you can see all sorts of deals or all sorts of case studies on this. They're very short. You can read them. They're in PDFs, so this is going to take just a little bit of time to open up the PDF. And there it is. This one's on. This one's called "Rock and Roll Your Growth Strategy," and it's a discussion about the music industry. This was actually a case study that was done with a music company, where they used this to decide whether or not they were going to acquire a company. So you can see that, and here's just some of the facts. You can see it's just a couple of pages long. This one's one of the longer ones. Let me show you one of the shorter ones. So this one's under operational effectiveness, better care, customer care for less money. And here we had a company that was able to make a better operational decision by changing account manager responsibilities. That was what they eventually decided on. And Decision Guru helped them understand a hybrid decision that actually ended up dominating. And the CEO is actually on this particular team. So it really made a big impact for them. All right. Anyway, you can read all of those case studies, and I'll show you where you can actually look at the Decision Gurus as well for those case studies. All right, let's start out from the top of the Straight Line website, and we're just going to sign in. So you sign in by clicking this button on the upper right where it says Sign In. Okay, and I'm already in here, so I'm just going to continue. All right, and it takes us to the Straight Line platform, and you should probably be familiar with this because this is where we downloaded our solutions and so forth. Let me show you where. If we navigate, you should remember on the left-hand side is the navigation pane, where we can go through all the different places. In the public solutions, there are Decision Guru case studies. These are the PDF documents. You can download them from here, or you can download them directly from the website. But perhaps more interesting is the DG demos. So, for example, we did the customer care process improvement. That's actually in here, right there, and you can see these are Decision Guru documents. So you can open them up. You can share them with other people and so forth. But anyway, these are the Decision Guru documents for those. All right, let me close that down. And we're just going to do it from soup to nuts. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a folder, and I'm going to, you'll see that I'm doing this all in my, I'm going to do it in my solutions. So I'm going to call my repository name College Choice Example. And you'll see that over in the left-hand side, you'll see the College Choice Example Decision Guru come up. Oops, I must have put that in the wrong place. There we go. So I'm going to delete that, actually. And I'm going to, sorry about that, folks. I'm going to go back to My Solutions. I'm going to try and create the, within Decision Guru, I'm going to make a new folder. I'll call it College Choice Example. Now, I could have moved the other folder, but I decided I wanted to do this. All right. And we're going to do this from scratch. All right, there it is right there. There's my College Choice Example. Now I'm going to select that, and we're just going to do a new Decision Guru. So to launch a new Decision Guru, you just click on the icon, as I will right here. You notice on the icons on the left-hand side, there's Decision Guru, Sample Sizer, Measurement Mentor. We're going to click on Decision Guru. And when we do that, and you'll see when I'm going to hit the save right now, and we'll just call this college choice 1.0. How about that? And I'll just put in here, my note is it's a first cut at making my college choice, my college decision. Save the solution, and we'll see when I go to it, you'll see that there's a tab now that's open. That tells me where I am in the navigation panel. And you'll see it now says 1, which means I've now written a file to that. Okay, it happens to be this file right here. All right, so let's just go through some of the features of Decision Guru. If this is the first time you've used this, I want to show you some of the basic navigation features. First of all, we can give ourselves a little more horizontal space by closing this and opening this at will. So I'm going to close down the left-hand side. And that gives me a lot of space left to right, which is nice. The second thing I want you to notice is that right up here we have process balls, if you will. And those process balls can help us navigate easily and quickly back and forth on the screen. If I want to go to 2, I can just click on the 2 here, or I can hit the continuous. Lots of different ways. If I want to go directly to 5, I just click on that. It brings me to step 5. We are going to follow a step-by-step process, but you can see once you get comfortable with it, you can do all sorts of things, moving from left to right and so forth, and doing it quickly. And that's really the key, is that once you get practice up, you'll be able to do it nicely, nice and quickly. Okay, so let's go through this. Just like the others, we have lots of different places where there's online help. You click on it, it'll tell you a little bit about what you're supposed to be doing. And many of these places also have examples. Okay, so if you click on the example button, it'll actually tell you what's an example of how you might fill that in. All right, let's begin with ours. I also want to point out that these panes can be, to give you a little more vertical space, can be shut down and entered as well. Okay, so check that out. All right, so let's start out with this. One of the most important things is framing a decision, it turns out. And so the framing of it is done descriptively, and this is where we're going to frame our decision. And so that simply means, editing, everybody agreeing on what is this decision. So this is quite simply, this is decide upon the the best college choice for me. Okay? At that point, that's pretty simple. It might be a good starting point. Let's enter in now the different stakeholders. And this, again, is just to get us to thinking about what might be important to the different stakeholders. So, for example, one of the stakeholders is me. Another one is my parents. Another one is counselor. Oops, my school counselor. Turn off my pad there. Okay. Another one might be the college counselor, college advisor, and so forth. If I want to add more, I can always hit the Add Stakeholder button, and maybe my grandparents be there, and so forth. Okay? So we can add those ad infinitum. Also, if there are any notes that you want to put in, this little triangle in the upper right can allow me to do that. So if I want to put in a note here that grandma is providing some money for this, that might be a good then you'll see how that comes in to there. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to close this up so that now we have a little more vertical space, and now you can really see what's going on. Okay, the second thing is we want to enter the criteria that we know of, and we can change these later, but it's nice to start out with a few criteria. So, for example, one of the most important things might be academics. It's good to start out with just a few. Another might be cost. College costs certainly super huge these days. Another might be location. And let's add one more. Let's add social life. Okay, and again, we could put in, like for example, for academics, we could put in a note that says score on U.S. News and World Report list. Okay. And save that note. So that might be how we're deciding upon whether something has good academics or not. Okay, so now it's time to enter in a couple of alternatives. You know, in many decisions, we might not even know the alternatives beforehand. So, we don't necessarily even have to put them in. We can make a template for when we actually do have this, and it helps us think more clearly through a design or hiring phase or something like that. But let's go through this, and it also does help to put in some draft alternatives just to help think, you know, have we really thought through the problem and the criteria enough? So let's put in a few. So one alternative might be the local community college. Another might be the state college. Another might be a technical university. Here I'm thinking of like a Rose-Hulman or engineering college. And let's put in Ivy League college. Now, I'm leaving this general, but you would want to make it specific. Ivy League University. Let's make this university too. Again, we can change this later, and you can see it's a combination of kind of clicking on these ads and whatever. All right, second thing is we're going to now weight the criteria. And so, for example, and Decision Guru does this in a very simple way. Weights are either low, medium, high, or very high. So, for example, academics might be high. Cost might be, for me, very high. Might be, let's leave it at high as well. Location might be low, and social life might be high. Let's put that back to medium. The nice thing about it is, and one DG user talked about this in evaluating projects, not colleges, but projects in his business, and he said, you know, what was really nice about this was when we had the discussion with the room, when somebody argued that a certain criterion should be weighted more highly, we all noticed that when we weighted it more highly, everything else went down. And you can notice that. You notice it in real time. Even though we all intuitively and rationally, when we're thinking rationally, know that when we add more weight to one criterion, that the others become less important, we don't often see it. So this makes it obvious to everybody and makes everybody kind of understand that trade-off in a more visceral way, in a more gut way. All right, let's move on. Now, one of the things, I actually forgot to do something in here, and I didn't forget it, but I forgot what I think is often a key alternative. We could add, if we wanted to, don't go to college, don't go, or defer. That might be a good thing to add as well. Okay, so if we added that, then we could compare, oh, what would happen essentially if we made no decision. I'm actually going to delete that one because I think it's just going to, at the moment, bollocks or kind of cloud the decision or cloud what we're trying to do here. But you'll notice that we'll want to be able to add it. All right, at this point, we'll want to add in some scores. So, for example, now I'm going to make these up, but you could certainly, in any given situation, bolster any of this with real data and so forth. But you'll see that Decision Guru is made in such a way for you to do a quick score. It'll be a relative scoring system. And one of the reasons why it's good to have a do-nothing alternative is because it often helps us define what neutral is. But you know what? Against my better judgment, I am going to put in the defer until later alternative. Okay, so let's kind of go through this, and I think you'll find that scoring horizontally will make a lot of sense. So let's talk about academics. Well, up at the top of the academics, probably, if we look at the local community college, academics are probably somewhat negative, maybe neutral. So let's put in somewhat negative. The state university, neutral. Technical university, maybe very good. Ivy League, maybe extremely good. And defer until later, probably also somewhat negative, or maybe even a very negative. Strongly negative. Okay, cost. Local community college, somewhat positive. State university, somewhat positive. Technical university, somewhat negative. Ivy League, we all know, very negative. Defer until later. Well, that's an interesting one. Maybe it's negative, maybe it's neutral. Maybe it's positive, maybe it's neutral. But the deferring until later, college may cost more later, or there may be some other alternatives. You may never go to college. Let's put that as a somewhat positive and put it about on par with the local community college. In fact, maybe it's even a little bit higher. Okay, location. Location. Well, the local community college is about as good as it gets. State university, somewhat positive. Technical university, again, this would depend on exactly which one we're talking about, but maybe this is somewhat positive, or maybe it's somewhat negative. And Ivy League, it depends where you are. I happen to live in Ithaca, New York, and Cornell is right here. So for me, this is strongly positive. And in fact, a local community college is a little less convenient. So I'm going to put that as just a plus. Well, they're both in the same league. So I'll put that as both. Social life. Well, there's basically none at the local community college. State university, pretty good. Technical university, pretty good. Ivy League, pretty good to very good. And defer until later. Again, let's make that a neutral. Okay, so at that point we're ready, and we can also put notes in on any of these. Like, for example, right here, we might put, it's right in my town. Okay, and over here, I might put a note in that says, on the criterion, right, closer is better. Now, for some people, closer might not be better, so that might be a good thing to add in. All right, once we've got that, let's now move on to, hopefully this is fairly straightforward. Let's now move on to the analysis piece. And I just want to show you that at a glance, what Decision Guru does is, yes, it gives you a score. It gives you a score, often a very surprising score. These scores are, you should think about this as sort of the relative probabilities, given all these choices, of whether one is will be a good choice, okay? when we want to decide whether it's a good choice versus everything else, we use something else called risk analysis. But for now, we can just think of this score as the highest score. Higher scores are better, absolutely. And then there's also something over here called the blindside risk. And let's take a look at the heat map first, and then we'll take a look at the blindside risk. What the heat map does is the heat map helps us understand our biases. So you'll see that there's red and there's green, and there's varying degrees of contrast. The heavy contrast means that that decision has, like for example, this one right here has a heavy green contrast. That means that that particular decision point has a lot of weight in this particular decision. Okay, that's what that means. So for example, this is strongly pushing us toward the Ivy League university, okay? Whereas a very dark or high contrast red would indicate the opposite, that it's pushing us away from it. Now, I want to point out a couple different things. First of all, it's not just based on the score, right? So here's a plus plus, here's another plus plus, but those are nowhere near as strong in terms of the leverage they have on the decision. So you might say, well, it's the weight too. Well, it is the weight, but it's not just the weight. And this is a trap that many people fall into. It's a combination of three things. It's actually the weight, or the score that we give it, the weight that we give it, but also the contrast on that row. So for example, this one right here has a lot less leverage even when I make this high, and I'll show you. Even when I make it high, it won't have as much contrast. See that? It doesn't have quite as much. And that's because that the contrast between these is much less. If I made this, say, neutral, I'd have even less contrast. Okay? So, you know, it's a function of three things. It's a function of the score. It's a function of the, let me make that, again, somewhat negative, so we're back on where we were. It's a function of the score, it's a function of the weight, but it's also a function of the spread of the scores for all the different alternatives. Okay? So that's what's driving that. And in fact, we have some more sophisticated analyses that I'll show you on the end. But what this should be doing is anything that's really high contrast, it ought to make you say, are we sure about that? And we want to make sure that we double check because a lot of times it's these high leverage points are where if we make a decision, if we make a mistake, it's really going to count badly. Like if we assume, for example, if I assume Cornell is very high, and it turns out not to be very high in academics maybe for what I'm trying to study, or I'm just wrong on something, that particular mistake is a big one. And that's what this is saying. Double check there. All right, now let me move on to the blindside risk. And this is perhaps the most interesting thing that's in here. Blindside risk tells me what is the possibility that I will find something that I haven't thought of yet, either a new alternative or a new criterion that I haven't thought of yet that will be significantly different from all of these. And this essentially says that that risk is 16%. In other words, there's a 16% chance that I could get hit by something I didn't see about this particular decision. Like, let's say I went with a state university. There's a 16% chance that there was something I really wasn't looking at and didn't see that would either make this a bad decision, or there may be a better decision out there that I haven't seen, and there's a 16% chance of that. Now, we won't talk about known and unknown. That's for a much deeper class. We'll just use this 16%. Now, I like to go with the rule of 10% blindside risk. But essentially, what this means is that our risk is not low enough. I would want to work to either add more alternatives or more criteria to get that risk down somewhat. And here's how it would basically work. For example, I might think about, well, what are the other criteria that I could add in here? I might have a totally different criterion. these are all pretty broad. Okay, or I could have maybe specific criterion within these. So, for example, I might have, in academics, I might have U.S. News and World Report score. I might have something like rank of my major. Like, you know, if I majored in physics or whatever, you know, Berkeley has a very good physics department, so they would rank very high, for example, and so forth. And I could put those, I'm going to put those up there. And I'll show you what I'm going to do here. And maybe another thing I could add in would be, instead of cost, I might add you know, I might add some other things. I might add some other things into cost, like living expenses, and tuition. Right. So I'm essentially adding. Whoops. I'm essentially adding detail into that. I'm essentially adding detail into academics and into cost, and so forth, and I can change those and add those in. Okay, so I'm not going to do that right now, but you can see that that's how you would do it. You know, you can add in more specific detail into that. So I don't know, rank of my major. Maybe the technical university was the best in the country, and Cornell was, or the Ivy League was only average. This is strongly negative. Nobody's going to learn physics on their own. Very few people can. State university is neutral. Community college is somewhat negative. Now we're getting more detail, and we'll slowly see some of these different alternatives come down. U.S. News and World Report score. Maybe this just reinforces. Maybe we were actually a little more happy with the state. And so forth. And you can see that the blindside risk is starting to come down as we add more detail into this. Okay? All right. Okay, so let's move on, and let's go on to the last part, and that is, that is the, what we're going to do now is we're going to evaluate a decision and actually go ahead and make it, which is pretty cool. So I want to show you that we've done the blindside risk. I want to show you very quickly something called a bias chart and bias analysis. Actually, just going to show you the bias chart. And the bias chart, what it does is it attempts to summarize, and it has a different way of scoring this to really determine that leverage down there. And what it does is it shows for what are the things that are really driving the key decisions and how much. So what it does is it shows you various alternatives which are given in the bubbles, and it shows the different criteria that are affecting each of these decisions, both positive and negatively, and how much. So, for example, cost is severely, see, because that's a fat arrow, is driving us away from Ivy League universities. So we better be darn sure that's correct. For example, if it was likely that we could get a scholarship to this particular university, or either needs-based or something like that, or academic-based, then perhaps we could change that and we could do better. We also are assuming very heavily that the academics are very strong. So we want to double check that, just like we did before. And finally, you can see there's a couple of other things that are driving us from the technical university, somewhat negative on location, somewhat positive on the rank of my major. So that's what's there. I said I wasn't going to show the risk analysis, but here it is. Here's the quick risk analysis. And what this shows is this shows us the success probability of that decision, as if it were the only decision that we were looking at. In other words, should I go to the local community college, or should I do nothing? And it says here there's 42% chance of success, with 16% of the risk identified and 42% of the risk unspecified. That's a big risk. Whereas a state university, a little bit higher chance of success. Again, we probably want to identify more risks and so forth. All right. One last thing I want to show you on the analysis, and then we'll get back to the sharing and all that, is you can run very quickly a sensitivity analysis. So, for example, I'm going to go right back to where we were beginning by taking out those particular the particular criteria of rank of my major, U.S. News and World Report score, living expenses, and tuition. And you can see they get grayed out, and they're no longer calculated in the scores. I can, for example, if I'm at a boardroom or whatever, I can very quickly say, well, if somebody says, well, I want to take cost out of the equation. What if cost is no object? Where should I go? I can do that just very quickly, and we can see, for example, that if we took cost out of the equation, yes, the Ivy League university would be winning. I can also do head-to-head to say, well, it's really between Ivy League and state, so let me take out these others and see how they play. I can even move those around, so I'll put state first and Ivy League there. Local community college is looking bad. So I can move them around. See how I did that? I can likewise move around the criteria as I showed you before. Okay? So all of those different things we can do, and we can do it very quickly. Let's put some of these others back in. We can talk about what would happen if we raise the score. Well, you know, I really feel that location is the most important thing. We can see what happens, and so forth. Okay, so very important, to me that's a very important thing, because that in particular, that feature allows people to come together to discuss particular solutions and to see how they change when our assumptions change. A lot of decisions that we make in life, perhaps all of them, are really based on the assumptions that we have. Decision Guru puts those all out in plain black and white if you want, or in color. We've got the heat map, but you can always turn it off if you want. If you don't like the heat, can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. There you go. Okay, and so forth. All right, I'm not going to go any further into the features of Decision Guru, but just to note, there's a lot of things that you can do quickly and easily. And once you get comfortable with this, I think you'll see that you can go directly to any of these places, and it'll work really well for you. Okay, let me now show you two other features. If you like this, I'm going to hit the save so that we have this. Okay, so now that when I come back to here, and I'll open this back up. When I come back to this, here's where my college choice Decision Guru is. And I can now either, I can copy it, I can move it around, I can send it to somebody. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to export this to a PDF file. And when I do export it to a PDF, looks like it did it. It creates a decision report. Very briefly, Adobe always takes a long time to write. Very briefly, it has a number of the different key things that we looked at. You can see. Okay, perhaps better yet, I can also export it as a Word document. I don't get that nasty error message or could be harmful message. And the thing I like about Word is that you can type in. The pictures are perhaps not quite as good, but you can type in other things here, like we didn't consider Grandpa as a stakeholder, or something like this. Whatever. You can put in your own notes into that. And so the Word report is perhaps a little bit better, a little bit more flexible. Okay, but both are available. I want to show you one more thing, and that is navigating in the website and actually sharing this with somebody else. And so I'm going to share it with my business partner. This one, so I can choose what I want to share. If I had multiples, I could choose any of these to share. You see that? Okay, let me get back to where I was. College choice example. I'm going to share this. So by doing that, I select it, and I go to the share. And now I'm going to add somebody, and I'm going to add S. Werpel. You can either look it up on the left-hand side or type it in. Okay, and I'm going to allow him to select and edit the shared item. Click OK. I'm going to make this private, and I'm going to put in the sharing message. This is just an example. Please ignore. But I could put something like, I'm looking for your input. Can you respond by next Tuesday? And when I hit the share button, now that gets processed, and it gets added to his email. He gets an email that will tell him somebody has shared a solution with him, and he'll see it in his inbox. If he uses Outlook, he'll see it in his Outlook. And I'm going to show you what has happened to me. Something has happened to me. And here's what it is. It goes into My Shared Solutions, and by clicking on My Shared Solutions, I'm going to just do the last, when it was created. And we'll be able to see it very soon. Okay. So for some reason it's not coming in here, but it should be in My Shared Solutions. It will be shortly. You just do it by title, and I'll look at college. I think I called it College Choice. Or maybe I didn't share it appropriately. All right. Anyway, this is where it's going to show up. It takes a little bit of time to actually do this. It has to go through the system, and so it'll take a little bit of time to happen. But let's see if we're at that point yet. Not quite yet. So some of this is also dependent on that person's network and so forth. But this is where it will show up. Okay, and that's it. So you can see that then if I want to put this in a public site or whatever, anytime I open this up, it'll open it up, and it already knows that it's being shared. It will give me a thing, and if I want to come back and edit it or whatever, I can do that. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. I want to just kind of go back and let's recap briefly what we covered. Okay, so what we covered today was we covered Decision Guru. And we covered College Choice Example. We first framed it up, framed the decision, then we looked at the criteria and weights. Scores. Now notice I didn't talk too much and try and sell you on these scores, but you'll notice that all of the scores that we did were all put on a common scale. So unlike a lot of decision-making things where you have to get them on a particular scale, this one has one scale that fits all, and so you can do it very quickly. And you're not using numbers. That makes a huge difference when you're working with people. As soon as you introduce numbers, you get lots more arguments of should it be a 4 or a 5. This one doesn't have that. Then we looked at Blindside Risk. bias and heat map. Right? And then finally, we looked into PDF, Word, and sharing your decisions. So I think if you go back and you look at what we started out with Russo and Shoemaker, where these top guys in the field are saying, hey, look, what we really need to do is have a process. Well, Decision Guru has a process, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need to be able to practice. In that process, you need to be able to practice. Well, Decision Guru allows you to be able to do that on all sorts of decisions. We did college choice, but you can easily imagine choosing a vendor, hiring a person, making a promotion, choosing a project, choosing which project to launch, choosing whether to merge or not with a company. If you're on a Six Sigma project, choosing solutions for your particular project, which ones are the best. Whether or not a business case is ready, whether or not a control plan is ready, which KOVs make the most sense, key output variables make the most sense. Lots of different decisions. You can practice them all on this, and you can share them. You can save them for templates so that you get smarter over time. And there really is that. The social element and the collaboration platform, allowing multiple people to look at decisions, is just really icing on the cake. So hopefully you like this. Your homework assignment number 5, requires you to not only do a Decision Guru, but to share it with the instructor, which is me. Good luck on that, and hopefully this will show you exactly how to do that. All right. Until we see each other next time, thanks a lot. And if you have any questions, as always, don't hesitate to call me or to email me at, let's see if I can write this, at mzable@straightline.com. straightline.com. It wasn't straight. Okay. All right.